will pivot on to our previews now. Starting with that game, we have Georgia v Fiji. An excellent. We built it during the World Cup as the rugby's ultimate clash of styles, and it kind of really is. It's going to be the first game of the weekend, Saturday 5th of December, 12 noon kickoff here in Greenwich Mean Time. It's going to be in Murrayfield and refereed by Scotsman Mike Adamson as well. It's likely to be, in terms of weather, just a cool, cloudy, drizzly, breezy December kind of. December in Scotland. It's going to be
Scottish out there.
Yes.
Yeah. So
downright Scottish.
Yeah, listen, for both of these sides, I think it's a great that this fixture is going ahead, and I think they're both kind of hoping to lay down a bit of a marker, like a statement victory here after for both teams, you would say a frustrating couple of months overall. Obviously,
for different reasons.
Georgia had the positive result last week, relatively speaking, but still, tough prep and a tough tournament so far for them, and obviously Fiji, who had been hoping to really get going under Vern Cotter.
Well, they haven't got going at all.
They haven't been able to get going at all.
It was meant to start with a Barbarians game before to get them all warmed up and juices flowing, and then that got cancelled, and then one by one it's been a little cascading kind of thing of misery.
To see them out there is going to be very, very satisfying, and I'm intrigued to see how Georgia respond to a more positive performance last week. As you said on the top of it, and as we said obviously last year, this is the ultimate clash of styles in rugby. This is like your grappler versus your flowy striker.
It is very much so.
And either side, if they can make the game about their area, can win it, and can win it convincingly. And I think you've seen evidence of that.
Well, we saw in the World Cup in Japan. In obviously that's World Cup rugby is always as summer as it gets. It's it's kind of the end August kind of thing, dry track, and that did benefit Fiji ultimately. And Fiji kind of ran away with that contest. They set the tempo. But here in December in Murrayfield. There's
scope for a Georgian physical game, especially if the Fijians are out of sync. We're going to take a look at it from the perspective of both teams. We're going to start with the alleged hosts, Georgia.
Yes, the Lelos.
The Lelos, absolutely. They have not had it all their own way so far this tournament. But they will have some massive confidence as a result of the performance last week. Without Becca Gorgadze, who we talked about, that terrible injury last week, they're going to have to look to someone else. They do have a bit of depth in that back row. I think Ottar Giorgadze, who came out of the 23 last week, should be right back in wearing the number 8 and trying to sort of take on the mantle of that physical ball carrying
playmaker.
Playmaker is right. But he doesn't quite have the hands of Becca, but he does have phicality.
Yes, and that's what it's going to have to be founded on, because you're against a Fiji team that haven't played yet. You're hoping to shock them with your physicality, and they are more match hardened for sure. And then from a squad perspective as well, we were mentioning it in the previous. Soso Matiashvili, one of their kind of highlight reel guys from the World Cup, found himself out of favour for most of this Autumn Nations Cup, but really
he had
showed
a couple of rough. He had a rough showing against Scotland.
That's right. Yeah, and then he kind of they decided to scrap the Soso playing and pick another flanker at fullback, Kamaladze. I think they discovered he showed his worth last week in the Aviva Stadium. That little inside ball for that great try. They need a little bit of that subtlety. They probably need a little more of it going forward. They probably need their wingers to have a bit more pace to link with him. But he facilitates the performance of Tato at 10 by giving him a little bit another option to lean on. He's a very young man at 10. You need to share the burden a bit. So I hope to see Matiashvili.
Yeah, I'd love to see Nariashvili out of there. No disrespect to the man as well, but I would love to see Georgia back the young props in there as well.
That would be nice too.
Just for better, more dominant scrummaging. The Georgian picture, the Georgian thing that tempo that they're trying to set is obviously slower. I think minding the ball and sort of wearing the Fijians down. That's the key that we're talking about.
Make them make tackles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make them make tackles all day.
They need to be sort of more physical, relentlessly physical, and then minding the ball is massive as well. Like if they can limit their mistakes and maintain discipline, and then own those contacts in the tight, that's going to be massive for them. They could get on top of the Fijians, they could frustrate them, and that's where you start buying penalties and buying line breaks.
Exactly. Well, they need to try and stay on the right side of referee Mike Adamson here as well, in terms of if they are going to try and take it through phase after phase, which is the Georgian way. Like they want to try and get themselves into the 22 with an offensive line out. Don't particularly want to maul you. They just want to get the ball back so they can set up multi-phase ruck ball and win those contacts. But as we've highlighted before, this year the officiating of the offensive breakdown has been clamped down on, so the onus is on them to stay like very disciplined and accurate when doing that, because they're not. There's no real excuse for them because they're not trying to put that much pace on the ball. So they should be focused on accurately resourcing their rucks.
Minding the ball is going to be massive here, and then winning those contacts. I mean, they want to be running around the corner, bashing their way through. But we saw last week, like if they can do that, if Fiji narrow up, and we know Ranradra likes to jump out of the line, and likewise Nyakalevu if they go for him as well. And they do shoot out of the line, and Tato has shown an ability to like hold the ball and catch a poor 13 shoot coming out. So I think if they do narrow up, there is scope to go wide, and I think the Georgians will back themselves to do that, obviously weather dependent. Of everything for Georgia does stem from being able to mine the pill and own the contacts. But once they do that, they do have a bit of quality, obviously with Kavesaladze, who we all saw at 13 last week, brilliant. And so as you say in the wide channels. There is a bit of scope if they can mine the ball, if they can win the contacts, to move Fiji around and grab some tries, and that's definitely going to be the game for them. But it is a slower, more methodical, more physical picture they're trying to paint in order to frustrate the Fijians.
Yes, indeed, and the amount of attacking they'll probably do will vary depending on the weather that they do see, whether it's breezy or wet or
100%,
or if it changes, because it could be changeable. It could be doing one thing 1 minute and another the next, and then, as we said, like the stereotype is that Georgia, because they're a big physical side, love playing in the rain, but they don't really have confidence in their skill set to execute those passes.
Yeah, exactly.
So
when they're a team that love to hold the ball so much,
Yeah.
the rain actually doesn't help them, because the ball is going to slip out. You know, you're going to lose your feet. And with the refs just minding offensive teams in the breakdown so much, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for a Georgian team to paint their picture if the conditions are bad. And that is where, you know, the kicking is going to have to come in. They've shown a little bit better hustle on kick chase, and they're going to need to show that again.
Yes, absolutely. If they're going to kick to the Fijians, they damn well need to chase it, because the Fijians will kill them in open space.
The kicking will have to be like an overcooked box kick to the Fijian back three could be curtains.
And a not chased one, or a fractured line chasing it. The Fijians will notice that straight away in transition.
We're looking at potentially a backline that involves like the likes of Ranradra, Tuisova, Nadolo. You've got to be very, very careful kicking to those guys. But if you put air on it and pressure on those kicks and keep it narrow, that's where the Fijian hands can become suspect in wet, cold weather in Murrayfield. And obviously the Georgian plan involves forcing knock-ons and getting scrums, and that's like a huge area for them. If they don't manage to win the scrums, they're going to be in big trouble. They need scrums to turn into penalties, to turn into territory, to turn into Fijians losing the plot, to potentially turn into cards,
and then tries.
And slowly building step by step, and it starts with putting the Fijians under pressure and making them knock the ball on. I think some of the plays that we saw from Becca Gorgadze, who's obviously out this week, in terms of attacking the pill and the contact from a defensive point of view, they should absolutely be looking for that. If Fiji are carrying narrow at all, just winning, like they've been really great at it so far. It's been one of their key strengths. Really winning those wrestling contacts, driving them back and attacking the ball, getting it loose, making it awful to deal with from a Fijian point of view.
You'd think they'd back that, because they've had 3 hitouts against far superior teams now in a row, back to back, and their best showing came in the last week. So they'll feel like that's progression, whereas Fiji are coming in cold. If they're trying to hit up in those tight areas, you'd expect the more battle hardened side to be Georgia. They're like, generally, if they're both up to speed, you expect them to be the slightly more physical. Not to say the Fijians aren't physical; they are very physical. But it's just where the point of emphasis of their game is. If they're forcing Fiji narrow, they'll hope to dominate.
But forcing them narrow is so key. I mean, it's a very different challenge than what Ireland brought last week, and then even what Wales and England were bringing in the wet. Fiji are going to be going wide,
going deep, going wide, setting a tempo that's very alien
from a
to
Georgian point of view. Winning the individual contacts is going to be huge, but keeping their width is going to be huge as well. They don't need to get sucked in, because if a Fijian prop goes into contact against one of your props, you're gonna back your prop to dominate that contact, to drive him backwards, to give Fiji nothing, to make it slow. So you've got to be able to trust your inside defence and hold your width. And Georgie Kavesaladze, with his highlight reel try and his oodles of potential and his good defensive hustle so far, has an absolute job in his hand to keep his defence set first and foremost, to make sure that they don't get sucked in, and then obviously to watch what it's likely Fijian captain Semi Radradra is likely to be playing at 13, and that man is like one of the great offensive weapons that any team has in the world right now.
Oh, he's one of the best players in the world right now. So and like as good as Veseladze was last week, he was up against a couple of lumps in the centre where it was much easier to defend, to be honest, than what Semi's going to bring.
Yeah. So that's obviously winning those contacts, giving him no space to work with, is going to be huge. But making it messy, not giving them any clean and quick ball, and forcing them to operate from deep, and forcing them to operate, with unclean ball is a massive difference maker. If Fiji can get front foot ball and Georgia are standing off them, that's when Radradra is just unplayable. Yeah, well, this is the idea is to keep the ball out of his hands, however whatever form that takes, be that holding the pill, which is their primary goal, but even when they don't have the pill, try and force it narrow. If you're shooting, cutting off that outside, preventing Radradra from getting it in, and just dominating those collisions, forcing them backwards and backwards. Tempo is so important here, and that's kind of where the style is the matchup is going to be dictated. Is like you'll see in the first 10 minutes who's actually set the tempo of this game. Is it moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, or is it a bit more slow and a bit more laboured? If it's the latter, then Georgia do have the edge there, I would think. And I remember their under 20s got like a 12-0 win over Fiji recently in the under 20 World Cup. So a lot of those under 20s are making their way into the Georgian team, and there will be a familiarity there with painting that picture. And obviously Fiji have a couple of wins against them recently in the World Cup and the PNC that year that Georgia were invited into the PNC. So they'll be comfortable and understanding, knowing what they need to do. From a Fijian point of view, in terms of moving on and looking at it from their side of things, I think first of all we're just extremely excited and relieved that they are going to get a game. Take the field. We're going to see some Flying Fijians on the field at last. My God, it's been a long time coming, and this competition desperately needs them. I mean, we forget, but the squad that they have is so brimmed full of talent. And with Vern Cotter sort of spearheading the operation, I think there's big things expected and a lot of excitement around this team. It's obviously disappointing they're just going to get the one game this year, but this is potentially the beginning of something that could be very, very special. They certainly have the talent to make it so. They always have. In terms of the squad, we don't have the teams yet, unfortunately, shooting this on Wednesday afternoon. But we do have the side that was named prior to the cancellation of the game against France, which was Murray Valu at fullback, Josh Tuisova on the right wing, Nadolo on the left wing, Botia and Naik Alevu in the centre. This was after Radradra was given COVID. Then Ben Volavola and Lamani maintaining their roles in the halfbacks. And then a sort of a less experienced, not less experienced front row with Ravi Matavesi. I don't know the tight head. Doge, I guess. Doge. Yeah, and then Ratuva maintaining his position in the lock. Tuisue and Kunavula. Kamikamaka, I think that's correct, and Johnny Dyer making up the back row. Very much a discrepancy in terms of sort of name recognition and quality between forwards and backs, you might say. Like they don't obviously have the Brasiliatos in the squad at the moment, or even Viliame Mata is in Edinburgh at the moment, having dipped off a little bit. But you can be sure. Some of these guys you haven't heard of. Like, I bet you Kurivoli is a baller. Yes, I'm sure they are great in the offload, great in the contact. Look always with an eye for space. Possibly a little suspect at things like line out or things like particularly scrum, and particularly when you're matching up against a Georgia side that are renowned for scrummaging as a strength. They will likely be outmatched here. But the last time we saw them last year, and even the year before going in, they had founded this on. They founded some of their more recent success and their clutch on defensive hustle, as well as like locking down those set pieces. Surprisingly, against teams that have outmatched. I should make mention of Leone Nakarau, who I believe is in the squad as well. He is in the squad. He may come in as well. That in terms of name recognition, caliber, and quality. And he's an excellent line-out operator. So that could be a serious weapon for them. I mean, we talked about Georgia trying to set their tempo. This is about Fiji making the game about Fiji. Playing their world-class players into the game, getting one-on-ones with Radradra or Tuisova or Nadolo against these Georgians. Like we talked about the Georgians having a size advantage. They don't out wide. No, they don't. And the two wingers, Nadolo and Tuisova, are two of the biggest wingers in the world. Like if they can get one-on-one matchups against those Georgian wingers, they'll back themselves. Like they will pretty much win 100. I would say 100% of the time they'll win the contact, and like more than 60% of the time, if not more, they're just going to run right through. The defender's not even going to get a glove on them, like they're just going to bounce out of the way.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the pictures they want. They need to get the ball to the outside.
Yeah, some of those bowling ball carries that Tui Silva particularly has been doing in the top tours for years.
Like we saw, looking back at the Ireland game, which to our chagrin and frustration, there were a few instances of set piece where the Georgians were extremely narrow and they were shooting up, and if Ireland had the capacity to get the ball out wide, there was all kinds of space.
Yes.
So I think Vola and Ranradra or
two key distributors. I think Body is more there as a functionary between those two, and even if it's Naikalevu, it's 10 and 13 are the keys to linking between themselves and then getting it outside
the Georgian blitz and getting their wingers with a bit of ball in a bit of space is likely all it's going to take to open up this Georgian team, and that really is the key. The distribution, getting outside them, not letting them make the game about what has been a very impressive narrow defence, but backing your skills. That's what you have over
as soon as they get into space and as soon as it's unstructured play with the Fijians with ball in hand, you'd back them to score a try from that 9 times out of 10 against the Georgians, to be honest. Once they can get to the extremities of the Georgian defence and then just work 2-on-1s or work carries in that kind of space and with tempo, the tries will come then. That's the focus. The issue, you don't want to get into a dogfight. You saw it with Ireland last week. You saw there's a capacity to get into a dogfight, and if you're Fiji, and first game of the season, there's capacity to lose a dogfight if you find yourself there. Like, you need to play to your strengths.
One of the things we saw them do against the Georgians so well was just change the point of attack really quickly, just to increase the tempo and make it a tempo that the Georgians aren't used to. I remember at least one occasion the Georgians were kicking off a restart trying to pin Fiji back, and instantly before the first contact they were looking to get it wide to the open side. They were looking to have the Georgian pack who were all coming up on this side of the field, moving them straight to the wide, to the other end of it, where Ranradra, who I believe was on the wing at that time, just ended up running through and scoring. And that's the kind of thing, catching the Georgians, because the Georgians, they take moments off in games. They like things to be slow. They love nothing more than a scrum that takes 5 minutes to set. They're all kind of getting ready for that physical fight, etc. So you can stun them by moving the ball quickly away from them, and then they tend to be quite slow to react.
You're Fiji. You should be doing that anyway. Against any team, you'll play the All Blacks in that way. You should definitely be looking to play the Georgians in that way as well.
They did so to great effect at the World Cup.
They did. They showed the blueprint of how to win this game in the World Cup. They really did dominate that game, and it was a Fiji-paced game. But as we say, with conditions a little slacker, we're in Edinburgh, we're not in Japan, so there's a chance for the Georgians to be played in. The Georgians are obviously a bit more battle-hardened. They have to be wary of them.
They have a much stronger pack, I would say. Like Fiji's pack, like a lot of young guys in there. It is going to be a massive test for them. They're not always going to have the ball, and sometimes they're going to have to scrum, and sometimes they're going to have to defend a narrow Georgian attack, and the quality of the defending that goes on, getting out of the line and smashing the Georgians low and making sure that they can't go forward and use that sort of second carry that the Georgians have in them. They like to just take contact and then drive, chopping them low, making sure they can't do that. That would be vital, trying to take that away from them. But there is capacity and there is a fear that they get blown away physically, and so fronting up in the tight areas, especially from a defensive point of view, is going to be massive. And you know the old adage, forwards win matches and backs decide by how much. That's something that they'll be looking to challenge. But that would be the fear for Fiji, is that they can't establish themselves because their pack get blown away.
There's potential for that. The caveat or the reassurance for the Fijians that you would attach to that is that their capacity to score and score quickly is far greater than the Georgians.
They need the game not to be about the forwards, for sure.
But even if it is, even if they spend the first 10 minutes on a defensive set, say they say there's a scrum or a penalty that comes from a scrum and the Georgians kick the corner, and then suddenly you're defending for 10 minutes, you're tackling a load of heavy Georgian men in the tight and the ball's moving slowly and you're a bit sluggish and deflated, and even if they then get the score or they get a 3-pointer, say, that they kick from it, then you're kicking off. Then there needs to be a snap back into focus. There needs to not be a jaded kind of fatigue, like kind of sense. There can't be that weariness on the ball when you then have your chance. But the way to beat this Georgia team is to try and punish them, or just when you have the try or you have the ball, try and score a try or score quickly, just to apply that pressure, because Georgia do not like chasing games. They're not as built to do it as Fiji.
They're not built at all to do it. No. That's the key. And the other thing is just like occasionally you see Fiji have sort of attitude issues where things go wrong. But they're a side who've had it all put against them. They've been quarantined. They've had this opportunity to set the world alight that was granted to them this autumn and taken away because of COVID. It's so unfortunate, and it's kind of ironic. You know, Fiji was one of the countries to completely eliminate the virus so early. They haven't had any cases really, I think, since like March or April. Their whole team has it over here in Europe, and they haven't been able to play, and it's got to have been immensely frustrating for them. They need to respond to that. They need to be together as a group, and they need to believe in themselves, because there is a quality discrepancy here that is massive in terms of the raw skills and talent, and even potentially the physical attributes. When you start looking out wide, some of these specimens that the Fijians have, they always have that advantage seemingly going up against just about anybody, and even more so against Georgia. They need to believe in themselves. They need not to be rattled, not to feel sorry for themselves,
not to start forcing
things
to
be
early,
on the front foot and just believe that they're a better team, because they are, in terms of the quality of the players they have. They have some sensational talent,
and if they can start if they can go in with that mindset and that mind frame and just be glad to be finally taking the pitch, as opposed to pissed off. Go out there, express yourselves, throw the ball around reckless abandon, just play with a smile on your face, and that will be enough to unlock the Georgians if they can do that at all. If they can grab 2 tries in the first half, that's nearly an insurmountable lead, given their capacity to score versus what the Georgians have. Well, the Georgians have to win this game for 80 minutes by dominating every second of it, whereas Fiji only need to win a few moments to kind of take it away from the Georgians, and that's kind of what I expect.
Yeah, okay. Will we call that your prediction?
That's my prediction. It's a Fiji win for the tournament.
Yeah, okay. That we start with predictions. My prediction, it's a funny one. I mean, it's always hard to know.
It is hard to know. As you say, ultimate clash of styles could go either way.
Yeah, Fiji have been, behind closed doors. Some of the talent is phenomenal. I mean, I don't think we've seen enough of Tuisova, Radradra and Nadolo on the pitch together in a Fijian jersey, and I think the potential is there for that to just be awesome.
Yes.
And there's potential, if I call Georgian win here, for me to look very silly, because they could run up a score. Fiji, they could win this by more than England did. They have that potential. They have unbelievable raw talent, but I do worry about that pack, and I do think that there's an awful lot of talent in that Georgian pack as well, and an awful lot of physicality, and maybe if it's cold in Scotland, there is scope there for the Georgians to do a bit of damage. Maybe this is utterly naive. I think, if I'm honest, if you run this game, 10 or 20 times, I think Fiji win most of them. But there is a pathway there for Georgia to win. It involves dominating the game physically and frustrating the Fijians and forcing knock-ons, which are punished with scrums, which become penalties, which become kicks to the corner, which become relentless carries in the 22, which become more frustrated Fijians, maybe a high tackle, and then all of a sudden a card,
yellow card for Radradra, that kind of stuff.
And then all of a sudden we're scrumming again until there's constant scrums, maybe another yellow card. That's what Georgia like to do. Just can't be utterly frustrating and not allow Fiji into the game, not allow them those offensive pictures. And so, for colour's sake, I'll say that's the way it plays out. I do think that Georgia need a win, and I think need one. Well, they may well lose the game, but I think it would be great for them from a confidence point of view to get a win. And I think one way or another, it's going to be hard to read into what anything Fiji do, because of what's happened. They haven't really had a chance to build it all. They haven't had a chance to train even. They've been all self-isolating. So from a Vern Cotter point of view, he hasn't really been able to get his teeth into them yet. And I think one way or another, this will be a coming team, and I'm very, very excited to see what he does with them. But obviously, we've missed that this year. I'll say Georgia in a tight one. I'll say Georgia 15-12 or something.
That won't satisfy the neutrals who are hating on this competition. That'll get Stephen Jones right another offense. An ugly Georgia win against a disjointed Fiji.
But I love that.
I know,
That's not just great.
I do love it. I think both sides will have chances in this game. I think there will be a bit of push and pull. I think Fiji will be shocked by the physicality of the Georgians, but I think the Georgians may be shocked by the techers and speed
and the response then that comes. That's what you want to see, really.
Exactly. I would like to see a ding-dong battle, and I think in that, Fiji's capacity to score will see them through, possibly by about 10 to 15 points.
You're probably right. Right.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much for watching that video. If you're new here, please like and subscribe for more content, and leave a comment down below as well, because we really enjoy the chat and hearing your views. Thank you.